There are, yes. Yes, and then we go to the summer ones
So,
in July and August.
are you ready for this? It took me all these years to figure this one out. So last week was my 50th birthday.
Ah, mazel.
This week is my daughter's 14th
Oh, is that right?
anniversary.
Oh my gosh. Well, you had picked out your Torah portion. You remember that it was, yeah.
No, but she did too.
Oh, it's so funny.
She knew.
He's just finishing his 3 years in German and he's off to Saudi.
Oh, sorry.
Does he get to be the honorable Raphael Kaplan? Does he get an honorific like that? That's what I heard. And then I said. It's got open doors for him, sure. Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Himel, Malachei Halmachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, El Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Halmachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tzechem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Halmachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat shalom, everybody. It is wonderful to be with our small but mighty group here. Those that felt the draw of Shabbat into our midst, whether they are coming from near, whether they're coming from far, whether they're returning back home, whatever it might be. It is such a pleasure to have everyone here joining us on our webcast and here inside our sanctuary. Of course, always a pleasure to be joined by Cantor Shemesh of the Bima, and of course, our own special guests with diplomatic passports to Har Shalom at any moment of the time. Always a pleasure to welcome back our Rabbi Emerita, Rabbi Randy Matzitsky, and Rabbi Ron Kaplan into our midst. We begin, as we do, asking for all of the peace on this Shabbat and remembering that we grow closer to the angels on this day. These 25 hours, our holiest of days. And so we welcome in those angels that come into our midst as we sing Shalom Aleichem. But as we always do when we begin Shabbat, we add to the beauty of the moment with the light of our Shabbat candles, with the sweetness of our wine. And I could think of no better people to help us do that, if you don't mind, to help us kindle these Shabbat candles. Please, you as well, to invite Rabbis Maznitsky and Kaplan up here to light our candles and to give us our blessing over our wine. We are on page 120 as we begin with the lighting of our candles.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Einu melech hadolam, asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzeivanu lehadlik ner
של שבת.
It's like on the birthday cake when you have the trick candles. You just had to keep her on her toes. And we add to the beauty of the moment the lights of Shabbat with the sweetness of that Shabbat wine. As we continue on page 123 with our Friday evening Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pehi hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו, באהבה וברצון, הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תהילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציון מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון חינכתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
אמן. לחיים.
לחיים.
לחיים. תמיד בריאה, always to health. Please, thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
We can continue together with a moment of Kabbalat Shabbat, with us welcoming Shabbat into our midst. And we do so on page 130 as we welcome in with the words of Psalm 95, the words of Lechu Neranena. Lechu Neranena, la 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 la, as we have sung our song to God, Lechu Neranana, we continue with Kabbalat Shabbat as we welcome in that Shabbat bride, as we welcome in that true beauty into our midst, the feeling of Shabbat in this moment. And we do so, of course, with the liturgical poem, the words of Lecha Dodi on page 138 and 139, as we sing together not just the words Lecha Dodi, but verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, the cantor superfecta, as it were, each and every Shabbat to help us ring in this beautiful moment of
But
Shabbat.
you all have to sing together, the chorus at least.
La 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 chavani, la 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 kakala, la 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 b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekavel, la 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 chavani, la 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 kakala, la 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 b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekavel. Shamor וזכור בדיבורך איש ויענו אל המלחם אדוני אחד שמו אחד לשם ולתפארת במגילה יא לי לי לה 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 לחברי לה 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 לכלכלה לה 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 בני שבת בני שבת נגמרה לקראת שבת לכו ותגלה אם אתמול הדרכה בראש מקדם בסוכה זו מעשה במחשבת תפילה יא לי לי לה 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 לחברים לה 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 לכלכלה לה 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 בני שבת בני שבת נקבלה יצוררי יצוררי העורף ומיורי מורי מורי שתעברי כבוד אדוני עלי תפילה לה 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 לחברי לה 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 לכלכלה לה 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 בני שבת בני שבת נקבל. We invite you to please rise as together we face our doors and we welcome in our Shabbat bride. בואי ושלום הצוות חלק גם בשמחה ובטהרה תוך עיני עם סגולה Remain standing as we turn to page 146, and together we chant the words of the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We are on page 148. Together we can read the words of the Ma'ariv Aravim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro Ma'ariv Aravim, בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כצאנו, בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים.
Page 152, we join together in the Shema.
שמע
ישראל, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. As we've taken to saying the words of the Shema, don't carry the same weight if we don't know how we apply them. What do we do with those words? And we are, like so much of Judaism, given the answer as we turn the page. We find the words of the Via Hafta, which tell us how we apply all of the principles and all of the tenets of the Shema in our daily life. So we join together on page 154 as we chant the words as they were given to us in Torah. Together the words of the Via Hafta.
ואהבת
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We find the words of page 158, the words of the Micha Mocha, the words that we know remind us of that gift of freedom that we have been given, the gift that we spend yet another Shabbat hoping extends to the entirety of the world. When we see our headlines captured by ceasefires and non-ceasefires, when we see deals and non-deals, waiting periods and not, we remember that while the politicians may try and work their way through all of the language, it is the people that still anguish without the gift of freedom. Freedom from the fear of rockets overhead, as we saw sirens once again this evening in the north of Israel. The fear of their own government acting against them, as we find in Lebanon and Iran. And so we sing the words of Micha Mocha this Shabbat, not just for ourselves and not just to put us back in that moment, but instead to bring us closer to the idea that this is the Shabbat. This might be the week ahead that spreads to all of the people. I know we were going to sing it, but would you treat us to some traditional nusach and chanting the Micha
Sure.
Mocha, and it would come on a Friday evening?
Okay, but then it would start a little earlier on
Okay.
page 156. ומלכותו ורצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורות עילות אוסף אלה מלכותך רבנך לפני משה ומרים, זה ליאנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, כיפת אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
תודה רבה. We turn the page on 160 and we find the words of the Hashkivenu, the words that ask us on the heels of wanting peace for the world, that ask us for that Sukkot Shalom, Kol Amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim, a prayer that once again takes so much meaning for us this Shabbat, as we know that once again we find that Sukkot Shalom comes in so many forms. It comes in the form of our resilience as a people. It comes in the form of the technology that continues to protect Am Yisrael. And it comes in the power of all of our words and all of our prayers as we join together this evening, wishing this Sukkot Shalom into being for yet another Shabbat. Shabbat being credited by so many as what has allowed the Jewish people to survive for thousands of years. And so our collective pooling, we add to that this evening our own prayer of Hashkivenu, asking for that Sukkot Shalom yet again on another Shabbat.
Hashivenu
Eloheinu leshalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, v'chaim.
Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
And of course, on page 162, that we know it is time to gather together, not just by the fact that it's on the temple calendar or in the email blast, but in fact, it is our commandment to gather together as the sun is setting in these Warren Hills. And so we remember that commandment, we remember that mitzvah of keeping Shabbat holy. So we join together at the top of page 162. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לטובתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לטובתם ברית עולם. find ourselves on the cusp of the words of tefillah, on the cusp of that moment of ascending into a different section of our service. We do the same as we turn to page 164. And I think this evening, given that we are a small group, and given that we have had weeks that allow us the ability to find our own moments of beauty and joy, we can begin together with the words on page 164, the words of Adonai Tzvatai Titach, and then we'll continue chanting silently our own Amidah this Shabbat, beginning with the words on page 166 and all the way through page 170. We would invite you to go at your own pace, to read your own sections of the liturgy, and when you feel like you have concluded that moment of tefillah, when you feel as if you have ascended that plane and found yourself with that connection on Shabbat, we would invite you to sit back down. We invite you to rise. We turn to page 164. Sivatai tiftachu fi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Nearly the last 3 years, we've added a section in our service here, offering our blessing for the state of Israel in the midst of war. It's hard to know where we are right now in that setting, as war continues to be a word that is so often thrown around. One moment it feels like we're clear of it, and the next moment it feels like we're right back where we started from. And so I thought maybe in lieu of our words this Shabbat, we could turn to our liturgy, because like everything in Judaism, we have an answer for that. So we turn to page 178, asking for God to grant that abundant peace to Israel, your people forever. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Shalom rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם תשים לעולם תשים
We've taken, always when we come together, the opportunity to give thoughts, blessings of healing for those in need of healing of the mind, of the body, of the soul, of the spirit. If there are those here among us this evening who have a name they would like to add to our prayer of Misha Berach, we would invite you to share that name out loud or in your hearts, and together we will offer our prayer of healing. Always take a moment to ourselves. And while we had our silent Amidah, even those words themselves come from our liturgy, come from the words of our prayers. And so on Shabbat, we also use this opportunity to connect outside of the words of our page. I was thinking this afternoon, I don't know if anyone else watched the World Cup game today, with the U.S. taking the next game in our round of Group D, 2-0 from the Australians. The second half of the game, really the last 15 minutes, there was this feeling that the commentators kept talking about. They kept talking about that there was an air of not knowing what happens next in the stadium. They could feel it. They could feel that the U.S. was excited about this moment, but that they needed to protect this 2-goal lead. And they said you could just tell from the players and the sounds and the sense that they were waiting with this quiet anticipation for what could come, this nervousness with what would happen if they lost a goal and it was only down to a 1-goal differential. And it reminded me so much of the weeks and the days that we lead. We sometimes get ourselves ahead in our weeks. We have this 2-goal to nothing lead, and so we spend our weeks seemingly thinking we should be riding high. And yet instead we spend so much time throughout the week trying to protect that lead. We're so worried about what's going to happen next, what other shoe's going to drop, what do we have to do to protect it, our finances, our social media streams, our news articles, our friends, our family, our professional accomplishments, our houses, our chores, everything else that comes about. And then you realize that these World Cup players have been waiting their entire life for this moment. Here they are in Seattle in an incredible stadium, the crowd packed and cheering their names, wearing the seemingly colors of the American flag, the flag draped over them 250 years. And were they able to just take a step back and look at the moment, maybe the quiet anticipation wouldn't have been there. Maybe the appreciation for the moment would have gotten the best of them. So we find the same thing in our tradition. We are given this guidebook for bringing us back to that moment. It happens every week. We're given Shabbat, and we're given this moment specifically on Shabbat to leave the words, to not worry about what comes next, to not worry about the lead we're trying to protect, to not worry about what might happen if we get down with one more goal or the last minutes or how much time or this or that. Instead, we take all of that away. And we're left with the ability just to take a step back and look at the incredible stadium that we are in, not just here at Temple Har Shalom in the sanctuary, but on this world, in this planet, our spot in creation. How amazing it is that even on these weeks when we are at the highest of our highs, or the weeks where we are dealing with the lowest of our lows, we are still given the gift of being here together, breathing life into our lungs, and to doing what we've been doing for thousands of years, to choosing life as our mission for why we open our eyes every morning and say Modeh Ani, why we take all of the moment of Shabbat and take all of our liturgy and set it aside to instead be able to give thanks and gratitude. So we have our moment to do that now. We leave the written words of the page and we take a moment to ourselves to give appreciation for the own moment that we are in, realizing that it doesn't matter how many goals we give up or how many goals we score. We are playing on the pitch, the biggest stage in the world. And shouldn't that be enough for us to give thanks this Shabbat? We pause for just a few moments.
This week's Torah portion, Parshat Korach, tells a story of challenge, conflict, and division. Korach and his followers questioned the leadership of Moses and Aaron, creating discord within the community. Yet, beneath the drama lies a deeper lesson about leadership and voice. True leadership is not about competing for power or elevating oneself. It's about lifting others up, creating connection, and serving a greater purpose. Last week, I returned from the annual Cantor's Assembly Convention in Pittsburgh, where these lessons of Korach took on a special meaning to me. More than 50 years ago, Samuel Rosenbaum described the joyful bedlam of a cantoral convention as a unique blend of professional growth, friendship, and communal song. Cantors singing everywhere, in concert halls, hotel lobbies, elevators, and even saunas. While some traditions have changed over the years, that spirit remains very much alive. The convention revolves around three essential pillars: prayer, learning, and community. First, there is prayer. 3 times a day, hundreds of cantors gather to worship together, creating a powerful spiritual atmosphere. The melodies and harmonies are rich and layered, infused with deep intention and communal energy. Second, there is learning. Cantors immerse themselves in text, music, and leadership. This year's sessions ranged from exploring Jewish prayer in the Talmud and engaging with contemporary Israeli thought to learning new repertoire, including non-Ashkenazic melodies from Bnei Israel communities of India and communities of Morocco. Third, there is community and musical sharing. Through concerts, presentations, and informal gatherings, cantors inspire one another while enriching the musical life of the host community of Pittsburgh. Many memorable musical moments emerged from this year's convention, and I would like to share a few of them with you now. One of the most moving experiences was hearing from members of Pittsburgh's Jewish community, including congregants of the Tree of Life congregation. They shared about the aftermath of the tragedy of October 27 of 2018. They spoke about the countless acts of kindness, compassion, and interfaith solidarity that helped sustain them through unimaginable pain. Their stories reminded us of the healing power of community and the resilience of the human spirit. Our keynote speaker on Monday was Haviv Retik Gur, senior political analyst for the Times of Israel. He spoke about what he sees as 2 increasingly distinct Jewish worlds: Hebrew-speaking Israelis and English-speaking diaspora Jews. While united by history and destiny, he argued that these communities have grown apart culturally, politically, and religiously over the last century. His presentation challenged us to consider what it means to be one people and how we might bridge the growing gaps in understanding between Israelis and American Jews. Another keynote session focused on the legacy of Fred Rogers, entitled "When You Wonder, You Are Learning." It explored how Mr. Rogers was far more than a gentle television personality. He was an innovative educator whose approach to nurturing children remains deeply relevant today. Since his program was filmed in Pittsburgh's Squirrel Hill neighborhood, his presence is still strongly felt there. The session explored how today's educators continue his work by creating communities that help every child become the best version of themselves. Pittsburgh is known as the city of bridges, boasting more bridges than any other American city. Did you know that? It's a fun fact. Appropriately, our convention theme was repairing the world, one bridge at a time. One beautiful expression of that theme was an interfaith concert held in St. Paul Cathedral, featuring 5 choirs from different Pittsburgh churches and, of course, Cantor's Choir. Through music, people of different backgrounds came together, creating a living bridge of understanding and friendship. One of the most unique experiences of this convention was celebrating the wedding of one of our colleagues. Rather than inviting only a few Cantor's friends, he decided to invite the entire convention, entire 200 plus Cantors. The wedding was extraordinary. Every moment was infused with music. As the wedding party processed to the chuppah, hundreds of Cantors sang a beautiful 4-part arrangement of Mi Adir. And Sheva Brachot and priestly blessing were shared among 9 Cantors, each weaving their voice into the sacred blessings. And when the glass was broken, the joyful singing of Od Yishama erupted in a glorious burst of harmony of all the Cantors. I also had the privilege of singing in 2 concerts, one entitled Heart, from Mameloshen to Lashon HaKodesh, paired Yiddish and Hebrew songs exploring themes of love, memory, and hope. I was honored to perform the piece called Ve'ahavta, famous words we just chanted, but this is a different setting by the Israeli composer Paul Ben Chaim. And later in the week, on Wednesday, I joined the students and faculty of THS in a concert featuring beloved liturgical and folk melodies. Among the many educational sessions, one that particularly resonated with me was called Lyrical Liturgy, the Jewish voice of Dylan and Cohen. It was taught by my friend Cantor Dan Singer of Stephen Wise Free Synagogue. He demonstrated how both Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen drew deeply from the Jewish texts, from the Jewish theology and musical traditions. He also offered creative ideas for incorporating their music into synagogue worship, adult education, concerts, and holiday programming. Another meaningful session explored Jewish texts about prayer. We studied sources that encouraged us not only to recite the words of the Siddur, but also to offer the prayers of our own hearts. We also examined personal prayers composed by ancient rabbis. And some of those prayers never made it to our prayer book, yet they remain deeply moving and relevant today. And throughout it all, there was music. Music in prayer, music in concerts, music in hallways and elevators, music in conversations and late-night gatherings. The convention reminded me once again that when we study together, pray together, and sing together, we grow together. Korach warns us about the dangers of division born from ego and ambition. The Cantor's Assembly Convention offered a vision of the opposite, a community grounded in humility, friendship, shared purpose, and love. Our Zakenim, the wise elders among us, reminded me of the legacy we inherit and the responsibility we carry forward. Korach teaches that true leadership is not about elevating oneself above others. It is about serving, listening, and bringing people together. And this lesson at the convention came alive in every prayer, every song, every conversation, and yes, every hug. And there were many, many hugs of colleagues seeing each other after a long period of time. As we gather this Shabbat, we also mark Juneteenth, the day that commemorates the final enforcement of emancipation in the United States, and celebrates the enduring pursuit of freedom and human dignity. Juneteenth reminds us that freedom is not only a legal status, but also a communal responsibility. It calls upon us to listen to voices that have too often been overlooked and to work toward a society in which every person is treated with justice, respect, and compassion, and is heard. In that sense, Juneteenth echoes the message of our convention theme, repairing the world one bridge at a time. Whether through prayer, learning music, or acts of kindness, we are each called to help to build a more inclusive and compassionate community. So as we enter this Shabbat, Od Me'at, may each of us find our voice, not to compete or divide, but to bless and unite. May we become bridge builders in our own communities, carrying forward the harmony, that emerges when many voices join together as one. Shabbat Shalom.
We should have had you sing your Viahafta piece for our Viahafta prayer today, because it was such an extraordinary piece that you
I
shared.
can just demonstrate a little bit if you
Please,
want.
Please, it was a beautiful piece.
Somebody actually recorded and put it on the Facebook. It was okay. I mean, it was like they just did a little bit.
And I think you were sharing with me it's a blend of a Mizrahi Israeli composer, but it has tinges of Ashkenazi, tinges of Sephardi.
It's very different from what you're used to here, Ve'ahavta. And it's hard to hear it because the harmonies, the piano accompaniment underneath, that makes all the difference, right? But it's very, I would say, declamatory, like a recitation of the text. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol lebavcha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום and so forth. So it's a very, recitation kind of, but harmonies underneath are very beautiful.
As I said, we'll have to find a moment and an occasion in which to weave it into our service, because the musicality of it is too good to leave out.
Something special service of Israeli classical music or something like that. Or just Israeli music.
Yeah. Well, kol hakavod, both for your travels to the convention, for representing us so well at Temple Har Shalom, for sharing all of that so beautifully with us, and for living
I just
the words
needed
of
to do
Torah.
it while I was still remembering what was happening. That's why I chose this Shabbat, because it was just recent, so I still remember it.
It was our treat. Well, we are going to begin to close our service and be able to share in some sweet treats together beyond just the beautiful voice of Cantor Shemesh, but those that we can actually devour on this Shabbat. So we are on page 586 as we invite everyone to please rise and join us for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגואלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
And we remain standing as our thoughts turn to those no longer with us here in this world, but surely with us here in spirit. As this Shabbat at Temple Har Shalom, we commemorate the yahrzeits of Carol Feinstein Bush, Jerome Ehrenberg, Al Gelfand, Arnold Jerry, Eleanor Siegler, and Frank Sternberg. And we think of those taken from us in most recent days, those in the 30-day period of Shloshim, as we remember Richard V. Bate, father of Janine Silberberg, father-in-law of Justin Silberberg, and grandfather of Sydney and Amaya. If there are those who have someone heavy on their heart this Shabbat or commemorating yahrzeit, we would invite you to share their names with us as well. For all the names that were said out loud in our hearts and in our minds, we have the names of the soldiers of the American Armed Forces and the Israeli Defense Forces who have so bravely and in this moment continue to give their lives in defense of our safety, security, and freedom. We stand as one community, so no mortar stands alone. And knowing that for so many there is no one left to say Kaddish in our tradition, for each of their memories to be a blessing, we turn to page 598 and join together in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Yalmad yivrach yirotei v'yamich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'kol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtapach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudusha b'reichu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'yama v'yimru amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'yimru amen. The one who creates harmony on high, bring peace to us and to all of Israel. And together we all say,
Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Thank you, as always, to Cantor Shemesh, not just this evening for lending us our voice, but lending her the expertise of her beautiful Dvar, bringing Korach alive for us on this Shabbat, and for treating us for an extra little bit of music as well. Thank you, of course, to each and every one of you for being here to join in Shabbat with us. We have one more normal 7 p.m. Shabbat service next Friday evening, and then we switch to our summer schedule, 6:15 services sprinkled throughout the summer, so make sure you check our website for those times and to join us. They will be services highlighting the summer. We'll have the return of our famous Shabbat Shalom service this summer as well, our summer finale service, and then the very last service of August, it is our special Shofar Shogud Shabbat service, where we will integrate not just a summer Shabbat service, but also a shofar blowing workshop, so you too can become a Ba'al Tikiyah, one who blows shofar for us on the High Holy Days, and that, of course, will also be ringing in the month of Elul, where we are told to listen to the sound of the shofar to awaken ourselves. It is just around the corner. In fact, it was just a few days ago that someone posted in a synagogue professional's Facebook post, the countdown began 100 days to Rosh Hashanah. If that doesn't strike fear in your heart, well, it shouldn't strike fear in your heart anymore whatsoever, but it surely still rings true for Cantor and I in this world. We are going to get ready to celebrate together. We will have a beautiful Oneg Shabbat, but of course we never close without one more song. And Cantor, this is a campy melody, as it were, of a very famous song, correct? I will say, I saw this week your colleague, Cantor Ari Schwartz, up at Park Avenue, who sang Adon Olam to Bad Bunny.
Okay.
So we will get there one day, perhaps, but today we go back a little bit to a more traditional melody, as it were, right?
You know what happens in Park Avenue Synagogue? He actually asks the bar mitzvah child what they want.
Is that right? And he blends it.
And he just does it. If they love Bad Bunny, he does it.
It's a beautiful way to blend our cultures.
I don't know.
Well, as it is, we are going to close this evening.
Some things fit and some
Yeah. We are going to close this evening with Adon Olam, and you can find those words on page
625.
625.
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher
Asher
Malach,
Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yitzir Nivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Le'et Nasa, Le'et Tzofor, Azar Melech Adon Yivra, Adon Olam, Ve'acharei, Yikod HaKol, Ve'va'ado Yimlok Zera, Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Obed, Ve'hu Yiyeh Metzipara, Adon Olam, Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol,
B'terem Kol,
Yivra,
Yitzir Nivra,
Le'et Nasa,
Le'et Natzav, Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Natzav, think we are a tight-knit group this evening that we can all take part in giving thanks and blessing for all of the bounty we have. So I will invite you to come on up.